second C-Suite session, and our guest for this interview is Mr. Sumesh Patel, and he is the president of Sita in Asia Pacific. So we have the privilege to ask some questions from Sumesh in regards to what technologies will transform the travel industry. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Mike.
So maybe perhaps we can start first with, who is Sita and what does Sita do?
Okay, so I'm sure not many people here would know who we are, but we are quite unique, and so is our story. We've been providing, or a provider of IT solutions to the air transport industry for past 70 years. We were formed in 1949. We were created by 11 airlines then to address their IT needs. So every airline, when they started flying internationally, they wanted to make sure that they are able to collaborate, they're able to use the technology or an IT solution where they can collaborate better. And from there, over 70 years, now we've got 2,800 plus customers who use our services. And from our 11 owners, now we have 400 plus owners. So all the airlines and airports in the world basically own Sita, so they have shares in Sita. We are 100% owned and dedicated to air transport industry. So we provide solutions only for the air transport industry. So what we do is that, the air transport industry, if you talk to the aircraft manufacturers, talk to the airports, talk to airlines, they will know us quite well, but not the passengers. But we work with the passengers also very closely, because at the end of the day for us, whatever solutions we put together are to address, the passenger needs. And some of the statistics in terms of our presence, so we are at almost about 1,000 airports in the world, and almost every airline and airport in the world use the services or they work with us.
I think these are numbers that every IT company likes to have on their presentation and portfolio. So you have been with the company for more than 20 years, and that's
Yes.
what you said earlier. So what problems Sita has solved for the airlines over the past 70 years?
I would say one of the major challenge our industry, or the air transport industry, has, that there are quite a few silos. So if you look at a simple example, if you go to an airport, every airport has their own application to wayfinding, shops, whatever you do. Airlines, they have their applications. So as a passenger, when you travel, which application would you use to look at updates on the flights, or getting some more details on? So there are so many different IT systems all around the world. So what we try to do is try to bring all of these together and help the industry collaborate better. So if you look at some of what we do is like almost about all over the world in 220 countries and territories, we connect 13,500 different offices for the airlines. And if you look at on VHF, so we provide air-to-ground solutions also. So basically for the cabin and also for the cockpit. So we have almost about 1,800 VHF stations globally in 160 countries, which help communication between the aircraft and the ground. So with the aircraft manufacturers, with the ATCs, and help them. We also work with a number of airports and airlines where we invest on their behalf and try to have a shared infrastructure, so that both the industry can use the same infrastructure for their IT requirements. And of course, we are spread in about 170 plus countries in terms of our teams. We've got a staff strength about 4,700, quite lean. Being an IT company, we rely quite a bit on IT rather than more on people. But yes, we need people. IT can't solve the problems, so you need people. So we've got about 4,700 people in about 170 countries and territories.
That's wonderful. So in the past 20 years, and based on your experience, so what technology has proved to work very well in the travel industry, specifically to the, for the airports or for airlines?
I would say some of the very key technologies which has helped the industry basically address the operational challenges, enhancing the operational excellence, and also enhancing the customer experience. Because for every airline or an airport, the primary objective is to make sure that they are able to provide better services to their customers, and at the same time have more efficiencies in terms of their IT systems. So if you look at the space of airports, there are multiple systems. So starting with the airport management system. So if you look at in terms of the asset, any airport would have, forget the ground handlers and those who their own asset, but any airport would have close to about 60,000 to 100,000 assets, their own assets. So their people, their, if you talk about the trolleys, if you talk about, wheelchairs, and they don't know how to manage. So they are all over the place, and when they need it, how do they manage it? So you need the airport management system. So in terms of talking about your resources. How are you going to do the landing? How you allocate the gates? How you allocate the parking slots? So we provide the IT management system. So that has really helped the industry. The other one is baggage. I'm sure that everyone here would have some or the other experience with the baggage. And even today, it costs industry about $2.3 billion in terms of the cost of lost baggages annually. So what we're trying to do is working very closely with the industry, and because it's not just the airport, but it's the airport, airlines, ground handlers, and you need to work with everyone to make sure that a passenger has a complete end-to-end visibility of where your bags are. So we're working on that area. So that's one of the other technology. The other one is the crowd and asset management. So when we have so many people walking around the airport, one of the concerns when people have when they see long queues, it's where the stress levels go up. Sure. So with the technology, basically now you can manage that. So you can assign resources, you can understand where what the peak hours are, where the congestion is, and then accordingly be proactive to find the solutions rather than ending up with a challenge at the end of the day. If you look on the other side, on the right hand side, which is on aircraft. We provide solutions both on the cabin and the cockpit side, and complete nose-to-tail solutions. So basically, they address. So a simple example for Emirates, we help them enable about 30,000 internet connections a day. So that's what they do. So it's quite huge. If you look at the GSM, that is the mobile and the SMS, there were almost about 20 million passengers who used those services over about 550 aircrafts in 2017. So these are some of the technologies which have grown over the years, and helping both the industry and also the passenger to have better services.
Sure. So basically, if I may say, Sita is a company that takes care of the entire operations and making sure the passengers get from A to B, but without letting the passenger notice what technology is doing at the background. Correct? Is that what?
That's correct. So for the passenger, it's quite transparent. So at the end of the day, what they would matter is that how I can get away with my queues. How much time, and now these days it's not just shopping at restaurant, but how much time would I have to, use of my Wi-Fi at the airport? I have my own personal time rather than spending time in the queues standing in the airport.
I think for most of you who travel quite frequently, especially for me, it is important actually to reduce the time to getting to the airport and having more time to spend on work and other stuff. And I think that is the expectation of the future passengers to basically to get from the hotel or from from the home to the airport, and they just spend maybe 30 minutes or less to get to the airport. Is that what Sita is working on?
That's absolutely right, because these days the passengers are more informed and they want to be in control of their own travel rather than being driven by the processes and by the systems what they need to go through.
Okay, so let's talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and everyone knows that this is the flavor of the month, and it's becoming more transparent that without AI, companies are not able to actually to analyze, to make sense of the data that they are collecting on a day-on-day basis. So, what AI is going to bring to the travel industry? What kind of value it brings to the travel sector?
I think, frankly, AI addresses a lot of key areas, And we do our IT trend surveys with the airlines, airports, passengers globally, and we've been doing this almost about from past 20 years. And not only the industry, but even our competition use this data. So they're quite accurate because, well, we have the advantage of working with so many stakeholders, and we are being owned by the air transport community. So we do get a lot of data points, and through this survey, look at the technologies which are required and which are leading edge. One of the there are a few applications of AI in the travel industry. One which came up as the highest rank for both the airline and airports was the predictive analysis. So almost about 80% of the airport and about 65% of the airline said that's their priority. The other key areas were helping them with the chatbots and virtual agents, helping them with ancillary sales. So how can they push, how can they know the customer better, and how can they push details out to them when they're at the airport to say this area, this is the restaurant.
But I have my own reservation about chatbots. I still believe that it's still in a very early stage. A lot of airlines, they just roll it out without educating the chatbots.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, because if you look at when you use a chatbot, they will ask you that are you okay to be in a beta, because most of the airlines are still testing, so it's not there. But it's when I say these numbers of almost 80% and 66% of the airlines and 80% of the airports, this is over 3 years. So they do have plans today to look at this technology, and over the 3 years, they're going to invest heavily in this technology.
Sure. So how does AI bring value to the passengers, to the travelers? Because as a traveler, I realize that with all this investment in IT and technology, I don't see much impact on the service level quality that I'm getting from the airlines or from the airports. In fact, airport is the least. I mean, I see airports just as a place to get in and get out, rather than as a place that I really enjoy spending time or getting any good value-added services. So how does AI can actually impact my travel experience?
I would say I would like to share one example on AI and predictive analysis, and basically this addresses both the operational excellency and also addresses how it will enhance the customer experience in terms of a passenger experience. So what when we started working with Changi on this project almost a year back, one of the major challenge was that they were not able to predict correctly in terms of the flight movements. They had the visibility of about 30 to 60 minutes before the flight touchdown. And what happens is that eventually, if they don't have the real visibility, then whatever resources they assign. So when the aircraft comes, when as a passenger we feel that it's fine, we just get off, go through immigration, collect our bags and go. But for the airports, they have to make sure they have the right gates, they've got the right people in terms of getting the baggage out of the aircraft. They need to have, ensure that there are enough customs, immigrations, enough taxis. So there's a lot which airport needs to do. So with this predictive technology, what we were able to achieve was to get almost 80% accurate data, and it's still in beta right now. But what it helps the airport is that they have the visibility of the touchdown almost 6 hours before the flight touches down. So improving from 30 to 60 minutes to almost 6 hours. And what that means is that for the airport now, they can manage the resources better. They can assign the gates closer to where the immigration need to straight rush. So they are able to manage that. If they've blocked one gate for an aircraft, and if it's going to be delayed, all the resources are stuck. And with that intelligence, what it does to the passenger is that at the end of the day, if they know that there are 3 flights delayed, and they're going to be influx of a lot of passenger, they can plan accordingly. They can work with the airport authority, have more immigration counters open. They can work with the taxi companies to say that, you need to make sure that, we're going to get in the next 5 hours, 3 big aircrafts, and we need more cabs here. So it basically, at the for the passenger, it's transparent, but at the end of the day, it enhances their experience and
I mean, I personally have experienced several times landing in Changi Airport and being kept inside the aircraft at least 15 minutes because they were saying that, the gate is not ready for the aircraft to dock in. So I hope that, that AI is able to actually to make that operations more efficient in that aspect. So let's talk about biometric, because that's the next thing, and we all know that the security is one of the biggest concern for all the travelers. And in fact, this morning when I came here, I look at the whole registration process, and still we carry these cards, and I realize, why do we need to register? Why do we need to actually have this plastic and paper as a way of getting into this conference room? So biometric definitely is one of the best solutions that is always with you. I mean, you can't cut your finger. It's always, you carry with yourself wherever you go. So how does biometric is going to actually to affect the travel industry? And has it already started to be accepted as a way of, the customer acceptance at the, at the check-in counter or by the airport's authorities?
I think, the biometrics has come up as one of the leading technology which both the airlines and airports are looking at. So, in terms of the focus, it has almost doubled from the last year to this year. So if you look at some of the statistics, there is, almost 77% of the airports and 71% of the airlines are looking at programs to have R&D and invest heavily on biometrics. One of the example which I can share and which is in mainstream today is on the passenger check-in. So for you as a passenger, when you arrive at the airport, basically you go to your first touch point, which is a check-in kiosk. At the check-in kiosk, once you validates your passport and your facial biometrics, and creates a single token. Once that is done, every other touch point in your journey, you just have to show your face. So once you check in and you have a soft token created, when you go and drop your bags, you don't need any documents. It just validates you as Mike, and that's it. You can drop your bags, it prints the baggage tag, and you move on. You go to immigration, the same thing. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to deal with any agent. You can straight validate yourself. Same thing goes all the way to the gates, and you can board the aircraft. There are further enhancements which we are currently looking at to also include the lounge access, duty-free shopping. So anywhere you go, it's kind of, the biometric basically takes the lead.
Is it still a dream or is happening?
I would say we have implemented these solutions in quite a few places. So one is in Doha. We have implemented in Brisbane Airport. In Brisbane Airport, what they have done is that they have taken care of two touch points, which is the check-in and the boarding. But the complete end-to-end we have implemented in the US. So if you look at Miami Airport, Boston Airport, including the US Customer and Border Protection. So whenever you go through immigration, that is one piece where we always have a challenge, because we need to make sure that it is secured in its end-to-end. And since we work, the advantage for Sita is that we are owned by the community, and we work with the airlines, airports, governments, in providing different solutions. So even, for example, the e-visa for Australia, we are working with them. So it gives us an advantage to make sure we get all these stakeholders together and make them collaborate better.
So in your view, how long will it take for biometric to become a mainstream in the travel industry?
I would say, it's already real. Number of airlines and airports are already...
To become acceptable by all the industries as an industry practice?
I would say not in the near future, not more than 3 years. I think by 3 years, it will be most of the airports you will see are using some or the other form of biometrics.
So we don't have to carry any documents.
You still have to carry for the first validation, but they are, at least the passport is where is needed, the first biometric. But a lot of, for the domestic travel, what they are trying to also do is to create, and that's too far. And I would say, personally, I don't think it's going to be in the near future. It's kind of a blockchain.
Is it going to affect your business? Because some of the system or solution that you provide is at the check-in counter, printing boarding pass. So does it mean that some of Sita's technology is going to be obsolete if biometrics come in as a new way of the customer interaction?
I wouldn't say it would happen there, because the kiosk is basically uses the same hardware or the same infrastructure. what it is doing is basically enhancing that infrastructure. You will still need a kiosk, maybe not a check-in counter, but you would still need a kiosk. You will still need a backdrop. You will still need the gates at the immigration. You will need gates at the boarding.
And I will reckon that there would be a massive saving for the airlines in terms of the staffing and additional assets that they need to have.
Both for the airlines and airports, there will be huge saving, and also for the passenger, they will have more time to basically do whatever they would like to do rather than queuing up either at the check-in or a backdrop or immigration.
Sure. Okay, so do we still have time? Okay, so let's talk about automation, because obviously robotic is one of the areas that is growing very fast in every industry. So we don't just talk about robotic in manufacturing. So robotic is happening in the hospitality, in the hotel, in the service sector. So where do you see that robotic will fit into the travel industry?
I think for the travel industry, robotic is also getting in the mainstream. So if you look at, there are driverless cars which are already being trialed at the airports. And that is basically for the operation side of the business. But for the passengers, there are other, the technologies which are being trialed in terms of robotic technologies. One being robotic, we have a backdrop called Leo, which we have trialed at Geneva Airport and other airports all over the world. So as you get off the car or arrive the terminal, even before you get in, the robot walks to you, and once you are there, you can print your boarding pass, print your baggage tag, put your bags, and there it goes. So the robot will take care of your bag all the way to the back and to the carousel. The other technology is also robotic in terms of the check-in kiosk. So, even though we have a kiosk, sometimes you see now at the airport, even people are queuing up for kiosk check-in too, because number of passengers and not enough kiosks. So with the robotic kiosk, what it does is it uses AI and can determine automatically, can be deployed at the congested area. So rather than you walking to a check-in kiosk, the robot will walk to you and you can check in and move on. So these technologies are already, I would say, in trial, and then they would be coming up very quickly in the near future.
So my next question is about the future for Sita, because with all these new technology startups coming up with some sort of innovative solutions or apps, so what would be the next big thing for Sita to stay relevant in the industry?
I think for us, it's very important that we understand what is the business drivers for our owners, that is airline, airports, and government. But not only that, how are the passengers, how you and I are moving, what we would like to do. So if as long as we stay relevant and work closely with them to understand what their requirements are, or how they look at the future and what kind of services they would like to have, I would say it's space for everyone and not only for Sita. And for doing that, what we do is that we've got an arm called Sita Labs, which works very closely. We work with a number of startups. We work with the airlines. So, one of the examples which we shared was with Changi on the predictive analysis. So we proactively work. And in addition to that, we work with almost about 20 industry bodies like IATA, ACI, and we work with them and help them shape the future and what technology and the standards. Because at the end of the day, the challenge is that we have a lot of partners who can do a solution for airport, but how do they collaborate with the other airports and other airlines? That's a challenge. So that is where I think we feel that Sita brings the value of working with these companies and bring that value back in.
Sure. Great. Thank you so much for the very interesting insight. I appreciate the time. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.